Brandon Aiyuk's contract negotiations ongoing. Will it get done before the draft? Does it make it easier to do this deal now that DeVonta Smith has re-upped with the Philadelphia Eagles? Comps there, pre-draft visits, getting a little, I think, some hints about the 49ers draft plans coming up next week. All that and more on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you as always at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We love the everydayers and we love it when you are subscribed. Please hit that subscribe button on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. And if you are an everydayer, you know the score. It is our Winky Wednesday episode. So let's bring on today's guest.
Nicholas Winkler, come on down.
Wow, can't believe it.
Wink, what's happening, my man? We're getting close. There's only one more Winky Wednesday before the 2024 NFL Draft. For those of you who don't know, Nicholas Winkler, my former radio colleague, we had a Niners podcast before I started doing Locked On 49ers. He jumps on with us once a week. The voice of the fan, as he is sometimes known, just to chat it up about your San Francisco 49ers. And a lot of talk about the draft this week. Before we get deep into draft stuff, Wink, Brandon Aiyuk unfollowed the 49ers on Instagram. Can you believe it? Where were you? Will you tell your children about the day you learned that Brandon Aiyuk unfollowed the 49ers on Instagram?
I just hid in the closet all day after that. I didn't want to go out. I was so depressed. I couldn't understand what was happening. Why would he do that? No, I mean, it's the move now, right? It's like, all right, I want a new deal. I'm going to scrub my social media and that'll show them. That'll show them I mean business. I'm not following them anymore. It doesn't say I'm a 40. Like, I get it. It's a move. It's a play, and guys do it. And so I think that it's just the next step, right? And what's going to come after that? All week long, we're going to keep hearing about he's unhappy, trades, all the way through the draft. Could this be when the 49ers trade Aiyuk? You know, like, I don't think that's going anywhere. I think that's going to be something we just got to live with for the next few weeks at least. And then hopefully they do re-sign him or, you know, get something going with him. I hope they don't trade him. I love Brandon Aiyuk. I hope he's a 49er forever. But it's football. It's a business. He's playing his part right now.
Absolutely. And I think the draft is one of those, because deadlines make deals. And if you're going to trade Brandon Aiyuk, it's going to be before the draft, right? Mm-hmm. So we only have, 8 more days of this. And Croc, if I'm not mistaken, 2 years ago, when this all happened with Deebo Samuel, and it was much more dramatic then than it has been now with Brandon Aiyuk, and there was official trade requests, and, you know, there was offers from the New York Jets. But then once the draft came and went, it was like, okay. Deebo's got to talk with the 49ers now, and that's it. And I feel like that's the way it's going to go with Brandon Aiyuk.
And I think it's even different for Aiyuk because, you know, on the 5th-year option, he actually makes good money. You know, Deebo Samuel throughout his contract, you know, the 4th year for, you know, a second round pick, not a whole lot of money. That 5th-year option money is pretty solid. I think it was roughly $14 million. Yep. So even if he has to play on the $14 million, a lot of players, they don't care for it because, hey, man, we want that long-term stability. Who's to say next year Brandon Aiyuk doesn't go for $13.50, right? And now next year would be a legit contract season. So, hey, I want to go above and beyond. And with the 49ers, we've talked a lot about where he is in the pecking order and the usage of him. That $13.50 can easily go back down to 980, 1,000 yards, you know? And then now you lose all leverage when it comes to negotiating power. So, you know, you want something that's more secure, long-term, guaranteed. And I think that's what he's truly looking for. From the 49ers, might I add. From the 49ers. I strongly believe he wants to be a 49er, and the 49ers want him to be a 49er. It's just making it work.
It's funny because I've heard stuff like, you know, he was upset, moved out of his house. It's been vacant since the Super Bowl. And then there's other reports that it's like he's been working out at the 49ers facility, you know? So it's like, which one is it? Is he bounced mentally? Is he gone? Is he just waiting to redo his contract? Is he just having fun? The tweet that he said, I don't remember exactly how he worded it, but he was like, what's up, Mike Tomlin? Some people say we look like, and everyone's like losing their minds. Like, what are you doing, Brandon Aiyuk? He might be just having fun. He's like, hey guys, watch this. I'm going to unfollow the 49ers. How long do you think it's going to be before someone notices, right? And one of his buddies like, okay, here's $20. I'll say it's one day. It's like, I say it takes a week. And someone's like, I got $20, says within an hour, someone notices, probably just having fun. Cause I know I would be absolutely having fun if people lost their minds that much about stupid stuff like who you're following on Instagram. I'd be having a lot of fun with this stuff. I feel like Brandon Aiyuk might be doing that as well, but I don't know what's in his heart. Maybe he wants out. I have no idea, but I think we're going to find out if he's staying or not staying here in about a week. Wink, when it comes to how much he should get paid and what he should be asking for, I feel like the Philadelphia Eagles might have done the 49ers a favor because I think it's a really close comp, probably the closest comp in the league, and it's the most recent contract that's been done in the league with DeVonta Smith, who could be a potential number one wide receiver, is not currently his team's number one wide receiver, a first-round pick, $25 million per year, 3 years added to after his fifth-year option. So that'd be 3 more years after this year for Brandon Aiyuk through 2027. He would still be in his 20s with an opportunity to do another big deal after being potentially featured as a number one wide receiver. Like, how much more would Brandon Aiyuk ask than DeVonta Smith? I think the market's been set. This should be a pretty easy deal. Yeah. Or do you see Aiyuk on a different level than compared to someone like DeVonta Smith?
No, I think the comparison is right. I also just hope that it's not like the base, right? Where they're like, okay, well, we're not going to go any lower than that. We can't settle for that. So we're going to ask for this, right? And then we'll meet somewhere in the middle. And so then maybe the Eagles didn't do them a service, right? They actually set the bottom line a little too high for the 49ers. Not that he's not worth it, because he is. Aiyuk's a great receiver. He's fantastic. But again, we go over it every time, right? When you have the highest paid this and the highest paid that and the highest paid this and that and over, you can't also then shell out a ton of money for what's essentially your second wide receiver, because you still owe Deebo Samuel a ton of money, right? So I'm a little concerned at how this is all playing out. I'm concerned at this number that now Philadelphia has set, because it's not going to be lower than that. There's no way Brandon Aiyuk's people are going to be like, oh yeah, we'll take less money than DeVonta Smith. Like, I just don't see that happening.
But I do think it makes it easier because it should be in the same ballpark. Right? You look at him and what he is, and just kind of what we had that discussion about what they are in comparison to each other's offense. I even think DeVonta Smith is maybe more valued in their offense, just in the sense of the overall pecking order of all their weapons. Right. Where I'd say if you told Kyle Shanahan today, all right, you got to lose one of these 4 players. All right, Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, or Brandon Aiyuk, which guy would he say, you know what, I could probably do without him? Yeah. I think it's Brandon Aiyuk. And even though he's the number one target in the sense of the most targets as a passing game, I still think he probably feels like, even if I don't replace him with someone that can give me $1,350, I can replace somebody that can give me $800. And then Deebo, hey, I just need you to have a really good year to make up that difference. And then, hey, George Kittle, you know what? We're going to get you, throw you an extra 200 yards on top of what you got last year. And CMC will continue to do what you do with him. I think that's the argument the 49ers are having for Brandon Aiyuk. I do think it kind of seems like it makes it easy from the contract standpoint that, with the DeVonta Smith situation, but also could make things a little tougher if the 49ers don't quite see it the same way.
Well, I think you nailed it with him being the 4th option, right? Because those other 3 guys are so unique in what they do, right? McCaffrey, just such a receiver out of the backfield, can play any position out there. Kittle, such an amazing blocker, right? One of the best, if not the best, blocking tight end in the league. And then Deebo, there's nobody else in the league like Deebo. Aiyuk's a great receiver, but yeah, when you come down to it, it's like, how different is he than DeVonta Smith, right? How different is he than these other number 2 receivers out there in the league? Could they replace that a lot easier than you can replace a Kittle, than you can replace a CMC, than you can replace a Deebo?
And DeVonta Smith has been the second option outside of obviously like utilizing their quarterback's legs. Yeah. But he's the second option. It's AJ Brown, DeVonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, and Saquon Barkley may take a bump up now, right? Like he's on this team. Maybe they utilize him more, but it's been AJ than DeVonta in that offense.
It feels like the 49ers while we know what their MO has been, when they do deals, they kind of slow play it and then make a run right before training camp to sign their star players. This feels like a time when they should kind of hurry it up a little bit. And I think the Philadelphia Eagles were really smart getting a deal done now, getting the deal done before Aiyuk signs his, because whoever went first right now, Aiyuk's going to at least say, I need $1 more than what DeVonta Smith got. If Aiyuk went first, DeVonta Smith would have said, hey, that's a good comp. I want $1 more than what that guy got because we're next. You definitely want to get it done before CeeDee Lamb and before Justin Jefferson signed these huge deals. If Justin Jefferson blows away the wide receiver market and gets $31 million per year, that's going to make everybody's price go up. So I do think the Aiyuk stuff, if the 49ers were ever going to do a deal earlier, Aiyuk should be the one. Once they decide they want to do a deal, like get that thing done. And I wonder if I think they do want to do a deal with Aiyuk, but I just wonder if maybe they're like, well, let's just see if someone offers us something crazy in the draft. Maybe it'll make it worth it because we do have some salary cap realities, and then we'll go back to the table after the draft. Maybe.
I also think that there's one other player that could drive up the price for Aiyuk, at least in Aiyuk's mind. I think it's his teammate Deebo Samuel. If like, hey, this contract that he got is 2-3 years old now, and I haven't been paid, but I'm the all-pro receiver right now, and you guys want to continue to build around me in this offense. Well, why is he getting more guaranteed money? Why is he getting more money per year? And that would be a conversation that I would have. And again, it goes back to how much do they value what he does?
Yeah, it's like I want Deebo plus 13% because the cap has gone up 13%. You know what I mean? So, next, I want to talk pre-draft visits, maybe getting some clues to what the 49ers plans are in the NFL draft. And I've got a dark horse name, a dark horse player to look out for that potentially is a future San Francisco 49ers in just a few days. Next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are not only right for the role, but knowing that you had cast the net you cast was wide enough to find you that person that is perfect for your role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And LinkedIn isn't just some other job board. I talked about that wide net. We're talking about 1 billion professionals that are on LinkedIn already. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, taking a look at these pre-draft visits that the San Francisco 49ers have been on and have had in-house. Specifically, one very high-profile visit recently at the University of Washington that I found fascinating for multiple reasons, and some prospects that the 49ers have brought in. Now, Mel Kiper, and we've talked about this already on the podcast, Mel Kiper had a mock draft, a 2-rounder where he gave the 49ers Washington offensive tackle Roger Rosengarten, and then in the second round, Andrew Phillips, speedy cornerback out of Kentucky. And Mel Kiper is more of a what am I hearing guy than a film guy. And Kiper's the OG. He's been doing this since we were born, right? Since before we were born. In fact, 1970, I think he was talking about it recently. 1978, I think, was the first draft that Kiper did. And then he started working at ESPN, and he's been doing the Blue Book. And so he's been doing this a long time. He watched a lot of college football, but he knows so many people, and a lot of it is about stuff that he's hearing. So he put Roger Rosengarten in the first round. I thought that was really curious. And then you start to peel it back a little bit, and you realize that Roger Rosengarten played in high school under head coach Ed McCaffrey, and now he's working out pre-draft with Joe Staley. And then, like a day after Kuiper put Rosengarten in his mock, you see John Lynch and offensive line coach Chris Furster at the University of Washington working out those guys. And
and John Lynch is so all in. He's wearing Washington.
That's what I was saying. This is a Stanford guy. That's
Right.
like Croc going to football practice wearing a Warriors jersey. You know what I mean? He's a Stanford guy. He was wearing a Washington Huskies hoodie. It's like, dude, you must really love these dudes. Or it was just freezing and you didn't bring your coat.
Yeah.
So they're like, here's some hoodies. Because Chris Furster was wearing one as well. They're like, oh man, I thought the sun was out. It's like, when you go to a Giants game and it's like sunny during the day. And so you see a lot of people from out of town and they got their shorts on, the short sleeve shirts. They go to the Giants game and the sun goes down and then they're freezing. I mean, it's amazing how much money the San Francisco Giants have probably made selling like blankets and jackets to people who didn't realize how cold it was going to get in the evening. When
I like that
temperature drops, the prices go up.
Yeah. I like you're trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, but everyone knows when you go to the Pacific Northwest, you're getting bad weather more times than good.
Yeah.
Except for those, June, July, beautiful. One of the more beautiful places you can be. Outside of that, you're bringing your coat. He did that because he wanted to.
Yeah.
And if he wanted to, he must really like something.
Stir it up. You just stirred it.
They've got two offensive linemen, Troy Fautanu, who the 49ers might have to trade up to play left tackle for the University of Washington, and then the aforementioned Roger Rosengarten, who I think is more of a day two guy, second, third round, even potentially player. Maybe the 49ers like him in the first round. Maybe the 49ers might want to move up to try to get Troy Fautanu, or maybe he could slide to the 49ers there. But remember, Michael Penix was a lefty quarterback, so the right tackle, Rosengarten, was his blindside protector in college. So those are two names that I think make a lot of sense for the 49ers. Offensive tackles, could stick at tackle in the NFL. Either guy could potentially play guard as well. But you would think that the 49ers, with the exception of Mike McGlinchey, who they were really secretive about and didn't bring him in for a visit, there's been a lot of crossover between these visits and players the 49ers have drafted. So this was a visit at the Washington campus. I want to talk about some other players. Go ahead, Croc.
Did they ever bring in McMillan for a visit? I don't know. I'm just he's at Washington. It was just a thought.
Oh, the receiver, the wide receiver.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. Here, I got the list, courtesy of Steph Sanchez at
Shout out to
Steph 49K. I had her on the OT with BP podcast, and we talked about some of these things, and we thought it was curious that the 49ers haven't really been bringing in and having visits with a lot of offensive linemen. Well, then, boom, there goes the Washington visit. They were at the University of Washington, and now today,
which Washington offensive lineman?
Both of them. They're both there.
I mean, who visited with the 30 visit?
No. So the Niners went to them. The Niners went to Washington.
So that doesn't count, right?
Doesn't count as a 30 visit because that was like a sort of a private workout situation. And I think both Roger Rosengarten and Troy Fautanu were involved in that. I know for sure Rosengarten was. And then today, currently right now, in fact, might still be in Santa Clara, a guy that I've talked about a lot that fits for the 49ers in that late first round, maybe second round area is Kingsley Suamataia out of BYU, Penei Sewell's cousin. He was in Santa Clara today on a 30 visit, today being Tuesday, on a 30 visit with the 49ers. Sione Vaki, a safety from Utah, was also there. And so they're bringing more and more guys in. So of the players that are late first round sort of prospects that the 49ers have had those private visits either elsewhere or in Santa Clara, Roger Rosengarten, Kingsley Suamataia, and then let me see. I'm going to go down the list here. I'll read off all the names that have had confirmed 30 visits so far. So Suamataia, Sione Vaki today. There was Tatum Bethune, who is a late round guy, linebacker out of Florida State. Eric All, Iowa tight end. You know how the 49ers love their Iowa tight ends, more of a day three guy. Apparently, they've met with him multiple times, not just on a 30 visit. DeCamarion Richardson, a very fast Mississippi State cornerback, more of a fourth round sort of a player. They had a formal interview at the Combine, also a 30 visit. Michael Hall Jr., defensive tackle from Ohio State, had a 30 visit last week. Evan Anderson, sort of an undrafted free agent type of a guy, had a 30 visit. Jamal Hill, a fast, undersized Oregon linebacker, also more of an undrafted type, 7th round, late round type of a guy. He was in for a 30 visit. Caden Wallace, Penn State offensive tackle. Before these last two meetings with the Washington guys and Suamataia, Caden Wallace is the only 30 visit offensive lineman the 49ers had. And he's potentially more of a guard type of a player. Think Spencer Burford, 4th rounder, is Caden Wallace. Andrew Phillips, who was also in Kuiper's mock to the 49ers. Javon Baker, UCF wide receiver. Brandon Dorless, more of a day 2, sort of a big end interior pass rusher out of Oregon. Malachi Corley, next Debo Samuel is what a lot of people call him, out of Western Kentucky. He was on a 30 visit. Brandon Rice, Jerry Rice's kid, top 30 visit there for Brandon Rice. And then Shao Wade Smith, a corner out of Washington State. And one of the most interesting names, I think, is edge rusher Marshawn Nealand out of Western Michigan, who every draft analyst right now is just saying that teams love this guy, and they're talking him up and up and up and talking like he's going to be the name that people are surprised about that goes in the first round. The 49ers had him on a 30 visit too. So basically, Rosengarten, Suamataia, and Marshawn Nealand, if the 49ers are going to draft a guy at 31 that came on a private visit to Santa Clara, it's going to be one of those 3 guys.
So I have a question. So, let me just speak again, voice of the fan over here. I'm sure a lot of fans are listening to this. They're like me. They don't do the research like you guys do, right? When it comes to these college prospects and stuff like that. We get to the draft and we're like, let's go. Tell me who I'm going to start rooting for as a 49er fan. So I'd love to know how many in the past, maybe 5-10 years, how many of these visits, of these 30s, do actually get drafted by the 49ers, right? Like, is it a very low percentage? Do any of them actually get drafted? Is this something that maybe they do to throw off their scent of where they actually want to go?
I'm going to answer that question on the other side. That's a fantastic question, Wink. And there's a lot of answers to what matters and what doesn't about the private visits that the 49ers and other teams, and every team's very different around the NFL and how much those things matter. We'll get into that. And plus my dark horse name to watch out for the 49ers that we have not mentioned yet. Next. This episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Monopoly Go. We've all been there, either as a player or a fan. It's halftime and the scoreboard is not looking good. You're feeling low, not sure if your team can pull out that win. And that's when you dig deep. You lift your head up and you say to yourself, it's time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists, and take as much of my friends' money as I possibly can. That's right. We're talking Monopoly Go. The smash hit mobile game lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime, with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. And there's so much to do. You play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards all at once. Make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball. You can charge rent to your friends at all the iconic Monopoly properties. And you can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put your game face on, and download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or Google Play. So, Wink, to answer your question about the visits and the private visits, the only first-round pick the 49ers have drafted in the Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch era that did not visit is Mike McGlinchey.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only one. And they were purposely trying to be coy there. And according to reports after the draft, the Raiders actually wanted McGlinchey. Niners took him one pick ahead. They ended up drafting Colton Miller, who's actually ended up being a better player. Took some time to develop there, but ended up being a good player at left tackle for the Raiders. And I think they were purposely staying away because they loved him. I think they visited with him at the combine. They were blown away by him. He fit. He was a good run blocker. Kyle Shanahan liked him. So they're like, we're going to keep this one quiet, not bring him in. The 49ers could absolutely be doing that at 31. And
real quick, in that same draft, they had 2 visits, not one, but 2 with Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
And that could speak more to Nick's smoke screen.
Yeah. About. So the 49ers could be right now, it's lying season, right? So they could be, and which ties into my dark horse player for the 49ers. Matt Barrows just came out with his draft crush. It's a wide receiver. Go read about that in The Athletic. Matt Mayoko just started talking about wide receiver possibly at the end of round 1. Peter Schrager, who has some pretty good sources around the league, he put Ladd McConkey in his mock draft today to the 49ers at pick 31. So all of a sudden this feels like a smokescreen because it's all at once and somebody's talking to somebody, and all of a sudden seeing a lot of wide receivers to the 49ers at 31. It's certainly possible. I think trading Aiyuk makes it a lot more possible. But if you go look at those visits, the 49ers are visiting with day 2, day 3 types at those positions, which is where I expect them to attack wide receiver. And I do think they will come out of this draft with a wide receiver. But to answer your question, it matters and it doesn't. Like last year, they brought in Jair Brown for a visit and ended up trading up to get him. They had a visit with both they visited with every tight end just about in the entire draft, and they ended up drafting 2 of those guys. And I think they did have both Latu and Willis in pre-draft. So generally, they have drafted pretty heavy based on the guys they brought in for visits. But the one obvious exception was the one smokescreen they didn't bring in purposely was Mike McGlinchey. So you can't say 100%, but I would think drafting 31, it's more about preparation and meeting with those players.
Right.
And so, but they've visited with so few guys, or as far they've met with a lot of these guys combine elsewhere. They've been at pro days.
Sure.
The 30 visits in-house, and obviously that one private workout they had in Washington. They haven't done a lot of those visits with players that are being projected to go in the range where the 49ers are picking in round 1.
I think the big thing there too is when you're looking at, it's the smoke screen and this and that, and you go back to the Minka and that whole situation, they were picking like 9th overall. So if there's a guy that you really have that's high on your board right then and there's only so many guys that can go before him, 8 guys. Yeah. You just don't want someone to leapfrog you and get into that 8th spot. So you have to be a little bit more discreet with how you move. Pick 31, there's so much out of your control. A guy might go 10 picks before, and it's not until like the last few picks where maybe it matters if a guy is a little bit more under the wraps. So, you don't have a team jump up and steal a guy that you really like, which we've seen happen. But I'd say when you're picking at 31, I think you can be more out in the open, even if it's a guy you like, and not as worried as a potential top 10 pick like McGlinchey was.
Yeah.
Right.
Go ahead, Wink.
Well, I was just going to say, at 31, you're sitting there waiting, right? It's out of your control who these other people are taking. And I'm sure that they're always doing their homework, right? About like, okay, we actually really like that guy. He's still there at 25. Here's what we got to do to trade up, get somebody on the phone. Let's see what we can do, right? And that's probably why they're meeting with so many different guys right now. But again, so McGlinchey's the only first one. So they met with Aiyuk back in the day too. I mean, this is something that the 49ers have just been doing. Yeah. They usually draft. Okay. I love that. I love knowing about this sort of thing going in, because now you can, if you are kind of the casual draft fan like myself, you can go and look at that list that you read and be like, okay, it's more than likely the 49ers are going to sign one of these guys.
Yeah, and it's not every guy, so it's not a rule necessarily, and they definitely draft guys every year that they didn't bring in for 30 visits, and sometimes they just need more to complete the evaluation. Some of it is like one of the guys that visited was like he got arrested at some point for some kind of assault or whatever. It's like maybe you're just trying to check off the character box for a prospect, and that you might want to draft in the 7th round or sign as an undrafted free agent, or just complete an evaluation that's incomplete for whatever reason. It's maybe a small school guy, you didn't get to the pro day, so you want to bring him in instead. And so there's a lot of different reasons, and it doesn't mean you love a guy that you brought him in. It doesn't mean you're going to draft him, and not everybody they draft they're going to bring in. But I think it gives you a good idea, especially positionally. And so that's why I think, okay, they're bringing in some guys late that could be offensive linemen in that 1st, 2nd round range. They've visited with a whole bunch of corners, but more mid-round guys. They've visited with a whole bunch of linebackers, but late-round guys. So that's where I would expect them. I think that's where they're looking at the players. So I think that's kind of the thing. I mean, like last year, it was like, oh, they love tight end. They're going to draft a tight end. They drafted 2 because they brought in so many tight ends and visited with them in every way possible. So that's what I think the biggest hints of it. So if I had to guess, they're probably going to draft an offensive or defensive lineman in round 1 or round 2. Probably can have a wide receiver in round 2. I think they're going to look at more nickels type corners in the mid rounds of the draft, and I think they might draft a day 3 linebacker, day 3 tight end. That's what they're looking at. So that's what it tells me. So that's the loose plan, I think, for the 49ers.
You guys are getting me excited for this draft, man. I wish it was here this week.
The player that everyone needs to prepare for in this NFL draft is a wide receiver, and it's not A.D. Mitchell, which is Barrow's draft crutch. It's his teammate, Xavier Worthy. The dude ran 4.21, guys. Kyle Shanahan's alma mater. His buddy, Steve Sarkisian's the coach. And Kyle Shanahan's been sniffing around the University of Texas, apparently, and has been on campus and been in the building there. And Steve Sarkisian's his friend. And you know how Kyle Shanahan trusts his friends to give him the real information on prospects. And that's why it's really easy to draw draw a line to Roger Rosengarten, coached by Ed McCaffrey, currently being coached up for the draft with Joe Staley, right? He's going to have a really good idea of who this guy is. And he'll probably lean on these people that he knows and trusts for them to give him a strong character evaluation. And I think it'll be the same with these Texas wide receivers. He always likes having a really fast wide receiver on the roster. Danny Gray hasn't quite worked out. I think people should be prepared for a shocking name, whether it's Marshawn Kneeland out of Western Michigan that not a lot of people have talked about in the pre-draft lead up, or maybe Rosengarten going around earlier than people think, or dark horse name to watch out. And this guy might not even get to 31. I did a mock draft this morning on the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. I put Xavier Worthy 24 to the Dallas Cowboys. I feel like it's a Cowboys move to draft the 4-2 receiver. Xavier Worthy, when you run that fast, you're going to go higher than people expect. Yeah. He might be the fun name on Thursday night that people are like, oh, wow, Xavier Worthy went there. And who knows, it might be the San Francisco 49ers.
And I think Xavier Worthy, too, because you talked about, Kyle Shanahan wanting a fast guy on his roster. He's had Marquise Goodwin. He drafted Danny Gray. And now we're talking about, potentially Xavier Worthy. Worthy, when you draft Worthy in the first round, your expectations are different than when you draft Danny Gray at the end of the third round.
Yeah. Or sign Travis Benjamin.
Danny Gray was more like, hey, man, kind of like some of his skill set that he has. Let's see if it can kind of come together. If so, this would be a really good one of our mid-round picks. Xavier Worthy, you drafting him there, it's, all right, let's get this guy rolling right now. Like we need you to come in and be a guy. You can play off of these two guys we already have, but this is your role, and we want you to come in and be able to do that day one. So different expectations depending on where you're drafted.
So do we think if the 49ers do spend that late first-round pick on a wide receiver that this affects the Brandon Aiyuk contract negotiations going forward?
I think it would be – it could, but I think it's more about let's get a guy in so he's ready to go next year when one of our top two receivers is probably not going to be here anymore. And that's what I think it's more about. And by the way, Worthy did have a 75-yard return touchdown. The return game might be a bigger factor. All you need is this much of a gap. If you got 4.2 speed to house it on the new kickoff rules, could that be a factor? The character stuff, Croc, you had some insight on this, right? Because you know some folks that know Worthy. Like, he gets high marks. That's why I think it might be one of those situations. And he outproduced A.D. Mitchell, by the way, in college. He was a better receiver, had better numbers than A.D. Mitchell. So his team thought he was the better guy. And who's his coach? Steve Kerr.
I don't want to quite say that's what it means, because you can have better numbers. Does that mean you're going to be the better prospect? Yep. Earlier today, I was running sprints with my guy Lavelle Hawkins. Yep. When Lavelle was at Cal Berkeley, and if you type his name in and see how some of the fans, they speak highly of Lavelle. He led the team in receiving. His teammate was Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah,
he was not going to be drafted before Deshaun Jackson.
Deshaun Jackson's the comp for Xavier Worthy.
And that's a good comp. A lot of people think of, like, when you think of somebody that runs really fast. And Jackson, interestingly enough, his 40 time wasn't amazing. His game speed, that get live, blazing. I mean, you saw that anytime he touched the ball at Cal. NFL, just how he was just different. Like, it was very clear. So maybe he just didn't know how to run a 40. Maybe he just had a bad day. But it clearly was a lot faster than the 4.41, which is fast. But he was faster than that. But having him as a comp makes a lot of sense. Not the biggest guy. Deshaun Jackson around 5'10", 5'11", 165 pounds coming out of college. Not sure if he ever touched a weight. He's one of those guys. Yeah. And Worthy on the slender side. But I have had guys that have been around him. He played some tournaments for my organization, Elevate 209, and everyone raves about best receiver I've ever been around. And we've had a lot of good talent come through the program. And it was just best I've seen. Best around.
There you go.
What kind of person he is, I never asked those questions. So maybe I can get some intel on that.
Wink. Wouldn't that be fun? 99, 100. They go to 100 now in Madden, right? 100 speed.
100 speed
on that.
Hester was the first. Hester was the first 100 speed guy.
Yeah.
On Madden.
And now who has it? Just Tyreek Hill? I mean, anybody else?
They kind of strayed away from giving guys that. But you would assume that Tyreek Hill has that.
That's how he plays.
Wink, thanks for joining the show. As always, we got one more. I want you to give us your draft crush next week. So I don't know how hard you've been grinding the tape, but if you've gathered from all the information, preparing for the draft, watching the 49ers, if you have a guy or maybe a draft plan, I want to hear what your draft crush is next Wednesday as we get ready for this 2024 NFL draft. I
got one question too, and we can leave with this and we can maybe address it next Wednesday.
Okay.
But I saw it come across my timeline on Twitter, and must be a Bengals fan. He said, Chad Johnson, AJ Green, Jamar Chase. Name a team with 3 better all-time receivers. And
Jerry Rice, Terrell Owens, and whoever the heck you want is 3.
But there's some good ones. Chris Carter, Randy Moss, Justin Jefferson. There's some 49er fans that try to throw Randy Moss in there. I'm like, I don't think, I think it has to be the prime of that player. Because Philadelphia, they're not claiming Chris Carter. I've never seen anybody
Eric
talk about
Crocker's all-time tetime when we drafted, where he's taking all the one-year wonders for the 49ers and putting them on his roster.
Deion Sanders, all-time great 49er.
All time. What a championship.
Thanks everybody for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Make sure you check out the network-wide Locked On NFL Mock Draft Special, which drops Wednesday. Croc and I back tomorrow right here. Locked On 49ers.
See ya.